Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Hey.
Johnny, nice to meet you, man.
Nice meeting you, Don. How are you?
No, really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, of course. Love to be here.
So where are you located?
I train and live out of Salt Lake City now, but we have our Olympic trials here in Milwaukee. So I'm actually in Milwaukee right now.
Oh, cool. All right. Good deal. What's up, Big D?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Happy New Year, guy.
Yeah. No, it's we had some snow, but it rained away, so we're all good now.
Yeah, we just stopped. It's getting hit. It got hit kind of hard here today. About I'd say maybe about 6 to 8 inches today. So not bad. Not Salt Lake. I mean, Salt Lake doesn't get a lot of snow, right? It's Park City and those areas of Utah that do, right?
Sometimes in the valley we get hammered too, man. Before I left, we had like 6-7 inches of snow. I was out there shoveling, man. It was nuts.
Spring training.
Derek, this is a new thing for you, Derek. Snow in Vancouver. See, Derek, I always thought snow was in Vancouver until you told me it wasn't.
Everywhere else in Canada, snow. Vancouver, no. Rain, mild. Like when Shani was at the Olympics in 2010, they had to truck in snow for some of the ski events. They had to like helicopter in snow and stuff like that. It was pretty mild. So
awesome. Well, D, you want to lead us off today, man? I
mean,
what are you feeling? Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to introduce Don, Shani Davis. As far as I know, probably one of the most decorated speed skaters in the history of the sport. And he's gone from, winning Olympic medals to gold medals in 2006, 2010, and, multiple world records and different records that I mean, the list is so long. So I had the chance to work with Shani for quite a few years. I still keep in touch, and now he's coaching and he's developing athletes. And so it's kind of come full circle for him. He's now kind of leading people in the US now to be, to follow in his footsteps. And so it's kind of cool for me to hear about all of those things that have happened and how he's passing on all his knowledge and wisdom. So, I thought it'd be great to have him on. We've been talking a bit.
Amazing.
And yeah, we got the Olympics coming up. So, I wanted to know, like, Shani, you were saying they're having the trials. Is that kind of close to the actual Olympics? Is that on purpose?
Most of the times, whenever they had Olympic trials, it's always like the month before. For some reason, that's how Americans do it. But as you're aware, up in Canada, they actually canceled the Olympic trials because of the COVID spikes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it makes selections pretty hard. And I was even talking to some people who usually go to the Olympics as support staff, and they're all, either not going or they're very concerned. So what is kind of the state? You were telling me you're doing some media stuff where you're helping out and getting ready for the Olympics, but you're not going over there.
Yeah, correct. I am not going over there. There's a limited amount of staff that's even allowed in there. And if you're not like a part of like the national team coaching program, then you're not going over there. And even a lot of the national team coaches, like the numbers are limited. No, there's not a lot of people going at all.
How do your athletes feel about that? I mean, obviously you've your experience and your wisdom and the fact that you've been there and you've done that at the highest level, I mean, could, influence them, I believe, positively. I mean, naturally, when you're around a nervous athlete who might be there for the first time, I mean, do you have anyone that you've been working with that are just like, oh man, I need you over here right now. This completely sucks, but I just got to deal with it.
Yeah. That's just kind of just how it is, good thing that we have, FaceTime and things like that, but it's not the same as being able to like talk to that person, like face to face, like being right there as the moment's going on and helping that guy calm down and just give him reassurance and stuff, him or her. But it's going to be a different challenge. But this Olympics is not going to be like any other Olympics in the history of all Olympics. So I'm curious and interested to see how it kind of plays out.
How did this? Sorry, Derek.
Go ahead, Don.
I wanted to back up for 1 second, but how did this path start for you? I mean, speed skating. I mean, it's not like this isn't like baseball or just picking up a bat and going in and hitting with some friends. I mean, how'd you go down that path, and where did that all start for you?
Well, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Most of my friends who were playing basketball, trying to be like Michael Air Jordan. People were playing football, trying to be like Walter Payton, the sweetness. And I was very fond of roller skating at a young age. My mom introduced it to me when I was 2 years old. And then she wanted me to kind of do like the roller bounce, like roller quad dancing that was really big in like the late 80s, early 90s. But I wasn't very fond of that. I was more into like just the love of like just skating around the roller rink as fast as I could and getting the quarters to play the video games at the roller rink. Because that's why I was skating so fast. Because, you know, we went out there, it's supposed to be for skating. But I made a game out of it. The skating guards would always try to tell me to slow down and things like that. But people started recommending for me to try speed skating. We never heard of speed skating before. We never even knew it was an Olympic sport. And then years later, down the road, my mom had a boss who had a son that did speed skating on like a high level, like a world team level, national team level. And she came across some papers for him and it had speed skating stuff on it. She inquired about it and then he pointed us in the right direction when I was around the age of 6, and the rest is history from there.
It's incredible, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, can you still roller skate? Have you ever gone roller skating recently? Like that's kind of interesting how that started, right? And you know, what could you tell us about some of your earlier coaches and how they helped? And I mean, it's one thing to get into the sport, but there must have been some great people that kind of vaulted you forward to the point where you're like, okay, this kid is really good, and we've got to get some special people around him.
Sure. I mean, like my beginning coach is the guy that founded our club, Sam Hicks. He was one that just kind of, you know, it's hard to keep a kid's interest, you know, because we have so many things to distract us. And Sam was always really good at keeping us like involved with skating and I'm like doing that extra to get us to like train and stuff. He used to pick me up and take me to this little foothill, not a foothill, but a big little garbage mound up in Evanston. That was the nearest club. I was from Hyde Park, Chicago. And the nearest club to me was north suburbs of Chicago called Evanston. So it's like maybe like a 45 minutes to an hour drive through rush hour traffic Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's when ice availability was back then. And Sam always made sure like to keep the young audience of skaters engaged in skating and doing things to get us to that next level. And then as I evolved and I got stronger and better, you know, as I got older, I was accepted into the Olympic training program, the OTC. I moved away from home when I was about 15 years old to Lake Placid. And I went from training for skating Tuesdays and Thursdays and going to the health clubs, Bally's way back when, to being able to train for skating anywhere between 4 to 6 hours a day, every day. So that's when I started getting to that next level of commitment of trying to figure out what it's going to take to get me to that next level.
What was that transition like for you? Going from inline skating, I mean, backing up far, going from inline skating to ice, did you feel like that transition was something that was pretty, you know, seamless, maybe took a couple of sessions and you just felt like you started a catapult, or was there, or was there, what was the biggest difference when it came down to that learning curve? Because I mean, I grew up on the ice. I mean, I played ice hockey club, nothing competitive, but just fun. I still play. And I do know that there are some different, you know, things in reference to being on land and being on ice.
Sure. Well, I did roller skating and I did when the roller blade came out, which was a really big thing. I did that for a bit. And then people prompted me to do inline speed skating. And I tried it once and I like fell down, like going down a hill. Like, I guess the road was kind of like slippery because it like just had some rain. And I rubbed half of my hip and like my butt off. And I got up and I had my tighty whities full of like dead skin and blood. I said, inline again. And I never did. The thing that I did for my specialization was short track speed skating. And then I did both short track speed skating and long track speed skating because being from the Midwest, way back when it got cold enough outside, crazy enough, they would freeze this skating rink. And then we would drive up from Chicago to Milwaukee, West Allis, in particular, to participate in long track speed skating. And then once it got warm enough outside, the ice would melt, then we would go back to short track speed skating in a hockey rink. So the biggest difference was, you know, you have that big, thick wheel, and then now you're asking yourself to balance on a blade no more than, you know, a few millimeters in width. So it's very thin. And the skates that we had back then, they're very, they're weak in the ankles. So you had to build up a lot of ankle strength to be able to like stay on the top of your blade instead of like letting the ankles concave in and you get on your inners and outer edges. So that was the biggest challenge, I would say, is having that ankle strength and like that balance on that really thin blade.
I'm drawing a blank right now. There was an inline skater that actually from Las Vegas, and I think he might have competed in the last Olympics on ice. And the only reason why I know this is because my wife competed in inline skating, Derek.
Oh,
and,
wow.
She used to race with this guy. I mean, my wife's now 42, so I think, you know, he's probably around that same age, but he made that transition. And I was always like, oh, I wonder, I forgot the guy's name. I just literally text her as we're talking to try and find out who it was. But once it pops into my head, I'll blurt it out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, the interesting thing is I didn't know this until I started working with speed skating, that the blade is way different than an ice skate, right? The hockey skate is like, you know, squared off because you have to be agile, but the speed skating blade is like a knife. It's just like a knife, right? So it's
I didn't know that. So I've never seen, so you know what? I don't think I've seen a true speed skating blade then, because I was just under the assumption it was like, you know, how he's going to grab one now. Perfect.
I'm going to grab it so you can see it.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I always thought it was like how it was on the ice.
Yeah, no, it's
on hockey.
On a hockey skate. No, it's different because that's what we're all used to.
So the blade is much longer, as you can see.
Yeah, I see that.
It's really thin, and it's designed for us to carry a glide long. Like hockey skates are more for like agility and quickness, quick burst, but this is actually designed for you to like go longer, further distances, more. I guess, yeah, just more effectively. So the blade is very thin, as you can see, it's very thin, and it's long. And, you know, hockey skates, they kind of hook like this. So
yeah.
Different.
And you did, how many different events did you did? I remember reading that you did 1,000 meter. Did you, was it 1,000 meter?
I could do all the distances. I could do the 500, the 1,000, the 1,500, the 5,000, the 10,000. I was a world sprint champion. I was world all-around champion, and the all-around championship contains of a 500, a 5,000, a 1,500, and a 10,000. So I was a true all-around speed skater. But I landed my home more in the middle distances. So what I was really special and good at were the middle distances, which were the 1,000 meter and the 1,500 meter.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would say working with Shani, he had this amazing ability to have this incredible endurance, especially muscular endurance, but also be powerful and quick, which obviously span this, you know, great sort of spectrum of abilities, which you don't see very often.
Yeah, but I'm about to say, I was about to ask that. I'm kind of, I froze for a second because it's not really common in any other sprinting activity, right? Like you're never going to see someone who does the 5,000 run the 100. Like it's kind of a rarity. So is there anyone else that's done that, Shani, or is that pretty much, are you kind of the first to be that versatile?
There was, you know, the Eric Heiden comes up, but the game is a lot different now than it was then. And even when I stopped skating in 18, and things have changed in 4 years since I've stopped to now. But during my time from, like you say, when I first made the Olympics, well, I made it in 02 for short track, but when I competed in 06 to when I retired, I would say that I was the only one that was a real, true all-around skater, whereas I started specializing towards like the middle of my career to middle distances and stuff. But there was not people that were skating the 5,000 that could skate a 500, and there weren't people that skated the 500 who wanted to do the 5,000. I was kind of a rarity.
What did you enjoy the most? My
favorite race, what I would say would have to be the 1,500 meters. I remember having success at that when I was a junior, when I would skate at junior worlds and things like that. I won it my last year, and I always thought that I would be a 1,500 meter guy, but I actually ended up winning the gold medals in the 1,000. I was very close in the 1,500, but I feel like my dream race was the 1,500, but naturally coming from short track, going over to long track, the 1,000 meters suited me the best.
D, have you ever tried it?
I have not. I had because of Shani, we put our kids in it early on when they were younger, and they did some racing and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things, like, you can even ask Shani, it's like, it's hard to do that sport and then also like do basketball, football, track, so you have to be pretty committed. And then I guess that was one of the questions I had, Shani. I guess you didn't really get to play a lot of other sports.
I didn't, I did Taekwondo a little bit because I read somewhere in Sports Illustrated that the Korean people did it for having a better like agility and balance, being on like one leg, one foot all the time. So I did that for a bit. And then of course, when I was younger, I swam, I played basketball. I tried to like with my friends, but the thing that ruled over, and I also did track and field, but that was so tough. I ran the 800 meters and I ran the mile. And I did some of the relays, but nothing really captivated me the way skating did. I just stuck to what I love most.
And I have to ask, you probably were in a specific routine for a while up until as you were prepping. I'm sure some of the days felt like Groundhog Day, where there was just this monotony, where it's funny, in general fitness, everyone looks for variability, but training an athlete is completely different. Do you mind letting us in a little bit and just explaining like what that typical day of training would look like up until the Olympics, maybe say, 2 months out or 3 months out?
Sure. Well, we always had like ice time availability. There would be like 2 times in a day where you can skate ice, normally 9 to 11. And then usually like 3 to 5. So you had 2 ice sessions, and then you could choose which one you preferred. Most of the times we did the ice from 9 to 11. So we would wake up and get to the rink around 8 o'clock, warm up for an hour, do any type of various off ice trainings to kind of get yourself warmed up and ready for whatever you're going to have on the ice. Ice 9 to 11. Sometimes after ice, we would have like dry land training, which is like strengthening and conditioning off the ice, to help your skating. You go home, you have some lunch, maybe even take a nap, play some video games. I always try to squeeze in my video games, but not too much because, I need to focus and stuff. But I would get back to the rink around 2 o'clock, warm up again, and either we're doing like weights, maybe some cycling, some running, track workouts, or skating again. And then afterwards, from after 5, probably have some more dry land or something like that. And then you're finishing up the day, you go on the sports med, hop in the ice tub, get a massage, do some stretching, roll out the muscles, recover best you can. And then you're home, make dinner, go to bed, and then rinse and repeat Mondays through Friday. And then Saturday, thankfully, we had a half day. So we would get to the rink, we would do our training in the morning, maybe a bike ride or something. And then you're done by at least 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and you have the rest of the day off, and then Sunday's rest. So that was our schedule.
Awesome. D?
One of the most interesting things that I found in working with Shani, Don, was his ability to stay in a low compressed position forever, like for a long time. Like if you were to do like a skater's lunge, like rolling lunge across the floor, like he's doing this around the track several times, like holding position, dragging a sled. And I'm like, I would watch this and I would just puke my guts out after like 100 meters. But that's one of the things that I really noticed, and Shani can get into that, is like how long does it take to develop that strength? And 2, why is it important to have that low position?
Yeah, love to hear it.
Well, as you're aware, speed skating is like one of the most unorthodox sports because it's like a hybrid between like running and then like doing like some type of like wrestling moves, like trying to like catch the ankle of your opponent. But you're keeping that position, you're keeping your back rounded, you're sitting in the skate position. The knees angle is at 90 degrees. And then you got to kind of sit back on your heels so you engage your glutes. If you get too far forward and you get on the ball of your foot, then you're putting a lot of stress and tension on your knees. And I had a lot of knee problems, so I had to like kind of recalibrate all the things that I learned when I was younger about being on the ball of my foot to like sitting back and trying to catch the position on my heel and actually using the stronger muscles, the primary muscles, which is the glutes. And then as you get tired, it's like inevitable to like roll on the ball of your foot. So you're going to do that, but you need to train it as much as you can. So our coaches would have us do like lots of these like really basic double leg up downs from like, standing up to like getting to like a 90-degree position with like rounding your back, sitting back on your heels. we would do that so many times. Maybe throughout the week, we'll probably have like at least 5,000 of those like broken up. And then the advanced one would be like a single leg up down where you're having like balance. I remember Derek gave me one of his Dyna disc, and I would like go to the park and I would do like, a few sets of like, 25, and you would change like the pace of it somewhere like slow and controlled, really isolating those stabilizing muscles, balance and like the ankle and things like that. And then I would speed it up to work on like the burst muscles. And there's a lot of conditioning, but the reason why is you have to over condition it, because when you race, my key races, like the 1,000-meter would take for me roughly between a minute and 8 seconds to a minute 6 seconds, depending on the ice or wherever it was at. The 1,500 meters was, a minute 40, minute 43, minute 45, something like that. But you're training it so that, when you skate, it's not like, it's like second nature. It's almost like you're over the course of living, you're so fluid at walking and jogging, right? That's why you have to like kind of overtrain these things so that when you're on the ice, it's like second nature. And you have to really dedicate yourself to the training so that when you're out there, you're not blowing up after, a half lap into the race and you still have like, 2.5 laps to go. So that was kind of more of the thought process behind it. But as I learned as I got older, less is more. The less you have to do of it, the better. But that's when you're young. When you're young, you develop yourself, you train yourself like you're crazy. You just rinse and repeat, you do all that stuff. And then as you get older, you're more selective and more specific about your training.
What's interesting is, when you look at different sports and you look at different, altitudes, right? Obviously I was just out in Colorado and the altitude is a factor, right? For golfers, when they're playing down south, the post up north, the bunkers, the fairways, those are all factors. They all change because, the type of grass, the type of stand, right? That texture, how the ball might bounce. I mean, that all changes. Was it the same with skating? Would you be flying, say, overseas and saying to yourself, I don't know the answer to this. Well, the ice is going to be softer there because of the water. Like, were there certain conditions that you had to prepare yourself for?
Absolutely. There was always some type of like tricks. And as our World Cup circuit and competitions are kind of closed because there's limited ovals around the world. So we would go to the same places. We'd go to like Stavanger, Norway, Hamar, Norway. We go to Calgary. There's an oval there. There's an oval here in Milwaukee. There's an oval in Salt Lake City.
What does oval mean now, if you don't mind me asking?
The oval is the rink that we compete in. We call it an oval because it's 400 meters. It's an oval shape. So we call it an oval.
Okay. I never heard of, okay. I had no idea.
No, that's cool. It's cool. And then we would, so we will be aware that, like you mentioned, Don, like the altitude, right? So when we go to Salt Lake City and Calgary, there's less air resistance. So the ice is a lot faster. There's less oxygen for us, but you would get there a few weeks in advance. So we acclimate to the environment, and then we would go out and we would perform. And most of the world records that are being broken would only take place in either Calgary or in Salt Lake City.
Wow. That's fascinating, right? I mean,
yeah. In the old days, like they used to, I remember watching, like you said, like Lake Placid, they would be outside doing speed skating, right? So the oval is more of a modern day thing, but what's the difference? Have you done much outside, Shani, in terms of competitions?
Yeah, like when I was younger, of course, I skated outside, and then they covered the Pettit Center around 1994, I believe they covered it. But, there was like a disadvantage for like the weather, like starting to like affect like the results of skating. So they started making sure like the bigger races like World Cups, World Championships, and of course the Olympics were like being held in like covered oval rinks. So a lot of the times now you don't ever have to skate outside. It's mostly indoor skating now.
What about different training tools? Like I remember decades ago, they would have things like glice, like that plastic ice that you would skate on you'd feel your blade heat up, but your legs would be burning. And the next thing you know, you get on the ice and you just feel like lightning speed. Like, are those tools that kind of just fizzled throughout the last several decades, or is that stuff that still holds its weight?
Well, I think one of the bigger things that kind of withstood this the time standards there would be the slide board. I remember I had one when I was a kid. We bought one from like Kmart, I forget. You know, it was one of those cross cardio things that was like really big. And then I would do like the instructions said like to do like, you know, a few 10 minutes a day. So I built up my endurance on it. But I use that tool a lot now with my athletes to teach them like the effectiveness and like just the quality control of like the repeat of always kind of moving to the side and having weight transfer, flow, rhythm, and timing. So we do a lot of slide board work, and that's something that is really good for skating. But for the most part, for speed skating, we're not using any type of artificial ice surfaces. We do a lot of like mirror training where you get in front of a mirror, you kind of see your image, you kind of line yourself up, you know, head, knee, toe, like make sure you're in perfect alignment. You push to the side, you weight transfer, and it's more about like perfecting those type of movements and getting that muscle memory like perfect, and then seeing how close you can get that to when you skate and vice versa.
Yeah, the slide board. Did you ever use a slide board, Don, for anything?
Oh yeah, I mean we used it at Drive. We actually had 2 of them set up, and I loved it. We would actually use it with some of our hockey players that would come in, but you know it was so random when we'd actually work with them, because in season they were very particular about doing anything that felt like cardio, because they were on the ice so much that they would normally shy away with it. But actually it's probably the only thing I don't have in here that I probably will end up adding. But yeah, no, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, because I'll see people at gyms doing it and they have no skating background. And I don't know, Shani, what tips would you provide for people if they're going to jump on a slide board and just for general fitness?
Well, if I was to give them my biggest advice on slide boarding, I would say making sure that they sit in the right position. You know, I see people, like you said, at the gym and they hunch over, their hips are too high, they're sitting, whatever. You don't have to do it like a speed skater, but I guess the best thing that they can do is just learn how to like push for the side and then work on that counterbalance and that fine movement of just the repetitiveness of just pushing to the side and building up that muscle memory. It's good for the thighs.
What about technology? I mean, it's something I know I beat Derek to the question this time because he's always big into it. But are you guys using a lot of video analysis throughout your training? Are there any type of wearables that you guys might use for readiness? Or is this just good old fashioned, let's show up and let's see how we're feeling and then we adjust daily according to it?
Yeah, so more or less now, when I see people skating on like the bigger teams, there's like a cameraman, someone that's always filming on like both sides of the track, like the start of the 500 straightaway and then like the start of the 1500 meter straightaway. So they're getting both straightaways and corners, and then they're having this thing like on a cloud and they're filming. And then they have this thing called the transponders where they can like measure your speed and get your most accurate lap times, and they like chart it and you can like collect data and stuff like that. And you also have your coach there that's your, technical eye and your backup just in case you didn't bring your transponders or the transponders are down or whatever. But there's a lot of technology more or less now than it was back then. And I never used any of that stuff. I just kind of went off of feel and just, just really just hard work, right?
Yeah.
But, it could be to your advantage if you don't overuse it. I feel like people sometimes, because they have access to it, they get over analytical and they just try too much to make it about science. And sometimes the best thing is just keeping it simple and just going off of feel. And you can kind of use that if your feel is off, but I'm actually really thankful that I didn't have it because I would have been obsessive over it. I'm kind of like a perfectionist. So if I saw one thing off, I'll be like worrying about it hours after the fact instead of like moving on and putting that, behind me and moving on to the next workout. So I guess it has its advantages and its disadvantages.
Yeah, Derek, I really feel like that. I was talking to Dr. Gary Goldenberg the other day, who was Shani, who was a dermatologist that we brought on, and he said he became too obsessive over it. I wear Oura Ring, but what do I wear it for? I wear it primarily for sleep. I like to just see specific behaviors and trends in reference to like maybe things I eat. And I really don't obsess over it, but I try and use that data to just kind of improve myself a bit. But I think people have been going down that road of like in the beginning, it becomes constructive. And then after a while, they just start obsessing over it to the point where it starts becoming such a stress in their life. And I'm sure you would agree. The last thing you want is, an Olympic athlete waking up one morning and the readiness telling them that they're in the red and they need to back off, on game day. I mean, that's just a negative thing that you're putting into their head that they just don't need to battle with at that moment.
I agree. There's too much information and data out there now. And I think the best thing sometimes you use that for like kind of cross-reference, sometimes that stuff can be wrong. Maybe you just had a bad night of sleep. And sometimes monitoring sleep and all this other stuff, and it just gets to the point where it's just overkill, in my opinion. But I was very lucky in my career that I was more of a feel guy. Like, I would kind of alter my workouts based on how I felt when I woke up in the morning. If I was too tired, I wouldn't push myself to go to the morning workout. I would get my rest and like maybe do something light in the morning to wake up the body. And then I would hit that second ice session. I'll just kind of push everything back. But as long as it got done, that was more important for me.
Now, you talked a bit about monitoring speed. I don't think people really appreciate how fast you're going in terms of like miles per hour and also the inherent danger of going that fast. And I don't know if you've had many big crashes. Some of the Canadians I'd work with, I know, one guy shattered his arm, another guy took I don't know if it was his own blade or somebody else, but took a blade into his glute. Like it went right into his glute. So it can be really dangerous. And obviously you're not wearing helmets out there. What can you tell us about the velocity you're traveling at and how you manage that and stay safe?
You just hope that the ice conditions are perfect. There's no like breaky ice. You don't have a misstep. You don't have a strip edge on your blade. So your blade is perfectly sharp when you're leaning over, going anywhere between 35 to 45 miles an hour on, this frozen ice surface. And I've seen some wicked crashes. I've seen people fall at like world record pace. They just like disappear into them pads. Like you said, there's people that broken their arms, shattered their arms. People have gotten blades. I've never broken any bones. I've cut myself once or twice, but nothing too major, just stitches here and there. But it's scary because sometimes you can have equipment just misfunction. And I've had it where my mechanism that holds my blade to my boot actually snapped. And that's the reason why I fell down. I was on the last inner of a 500 meters. I was hitting my top speed. I was going as fast as I could. And my blade just broke and I fell down. I disappeared into the pads. I've never fallen before at that speed. It kind of freaked me out because as soon as you hit that ice surface, it's not like falling on like a road where you just kind of stop. Like I fell down and I picked up speed. My skin suit, the rubber hit the ice, like that smooth ice. And I picked up speed and I took off into the pads. I probably accelerated. And I think I was probably going anywhere between like 45 to 47 miles an hour.
That's insane. That's what I was about to ask. What is the top speed, do you think, or was there a top speed you ended up hitting when you're really in top gear?
I used to have the highest top speed because I was more of like a corner skater from like my short track background. I was fearless. So I think that I got anywhere up to like 47 to maybe even 50 miles an hour at my best. I used to have the highest top speed in the world in speed skating because I knew how to set up my corners and I knew how to accelerate coming out. So my acceleration coming out of the corner from the apex, which is the halfway point of the corner to the corner exit, was like where you get the most speed. And I used to have that record for a long time.
How does that compare? I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how does that compare to like, Barzal, who ended up winning the speed skating competition at the skills competition at the All-Star game. He was the fastest player, or the other guy on the Oilers, who was the fastest guy. I'm drawing a blank right now, Derek.
I was going to say Conor McGregor, but it's Connor McDavid.
No, Connor McDavid. Thank you. So Connor McDavid held it for years, and then Barzal went and beat him. What are those guys skating? Do you have any idea?
I don't think it's very close.
Is it like 30 miles an hour though?
Yeah,
like
probably.
35?
Probably. Yeah, because they're in an enclosed space. Like, I mean, Shani knows from even short track, they're not hitting those speeds because they just have a confined space, right, Shani?
Yeah, that's right. So short track, the acceleration might be like higher. And to give you a reference, there's skaters now. When I was skating short track, if you saw someone skating like a 8-second lap, like 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, that was really fast. You have kids now skating 7.9, 7.8, 8.1 second laps. So I don't know like the velocity, but the G-force that they're having to hit around the corner to keep themselves from like, drifting way out into the pads. The speed is just, it's crazy. They're so much faster now. It's crazy, crazy fast. It's my favorite thing to watch, actually. I love watching short track speed skating, but you don't get the appreciation like you guys mentioned earlier until like you actually see it in person. When you actually see like the ice flakes, coming off the ice, and you can hear like that noise that the blade's making when you're putting all this G-force in the corner to hit a pivot to like accelerate and turn yourself out of the corner. It's crazy. Same with
No, I mean, it seems vicious because I've watched it several times, and like everyone almost looks like they're on top of each other. Like you're watching them skate and you're like, how's someone not about to trip, right?
Yeah.
Like you almost feel like that they're just drafting themselves the whole time until the right moment. Is that what's happening? Are they kind of like, are they all holding back until that last minute where it's just time to get out? Or is it just like, they're all trying to move around each other. There's just no room to move.
It's like they're playing chess out there. Some people like to, attack it from the front. More people like they're a little bit riskier and they want to like try to like use the pass. And sometimes you don't have any control over that. Like, they have this thing where they like kind of draw the lanes, the starting lane. And of course, lane 1 is like the easiest to get in the front, but sometimes you're like lane 4 and then you have to like work against like people in front of you. You have to kind of time it right. There's like, they can defend the track. And then, if they defend the track, is there like cross tracking? Is there like impeding? There's so many different elements that go into that. And it makes the sport more exciting, but a lot of people don't understand like the rules and stuff. So they don't really get it, but it's a wonderful sport to watch.
It's fun. Yeah. I love
I think it's more like roller derby, right, Don?
No, I mean, it almost gives me like a bit of anxiety when I watch it. Like, it's like watching that movie where you're like, oh my God, what's going on? Obviously I'm a novice when it comes to viewing that stuff because I don't know the rules, but you just feel like there's so many moving parts that just something can go wrong instantaneously at any second.
Like the Australian guy who won because everybody else fell down. Like, that could happen, right?
It could happen. I was there for that. I watched that and I watched that unfold, and we're just like, wow, this guy just won a gold medal because 4 people fell down in front of him. Gee, man. Crazy.
How do you handle that? Was he just like, hey, luck of the draw? Or was he like, how do you respond to something like that?
I'm sure there was some alcohol involved that evening.
He probably bought some lottery tickets too after that.
Yeah, about to say, it's pretty good. Hey, listen, he's got a gold. No one's got to know that 4 people fell in front of him. It's like that. It's like that seeing eye single, Derek, you hit that ball and it's flubbing through the infield and no one grabs it. It's still a single in the book, right? That's awesome. How about nutritionally? Was it, I mean, we spoke about training. Were you guys focused on that at all? Or was it just like get any calories in and just focus on training?
For a while, like we never really had to like focus on it because at the Olympic Training Center, they had like this cafeteria, right? And they had like these chefs that would like just make the food for us. So the only thing we really had to do was just focus on our training. And then if we wanted to like, be more specific about it, we could talk to a nutritionalist and then they would kind of get us on like a meal plan, a calorie counter, whatever. But I never had to do that, thankfully. My metabolism was always pretty fast. After I retired, I kind of, got up there in the weight, but I wasn't training, 6 to 8 hours a day. So it's to be expected. But when you're at that level and you need the most out of your body to be able to perform, you need the exact nutrients, you need the recovery stuff, you need the hydration stuff. All that stuff plays a really pivotal role in your success. And I think more now, more than ever, since the level of competition is higher, you're seeing more people take this part of their performance more seriously.
Yeah, it was very interesting working with speed skating. I would say it's and Shani can kind of touch on this too, but I always thought it was one of those sports where it was probably less influenced by things like banned substances because it was so technical. And it wasn't just about like, somebody taking drugs and going out and burning it up, but But Shawnee, like, has it been a problem in the sport, or is it one of those sports that's a little less touched by it because of that technical, that feel and all those things? Because I think that's the one thing I noticed in just some of the athletes that I met over the years was like, they were obviously very dedicated and very talented, but at the same time, the technique was so important that you couldn't really rely on something external.
Yeah. That's a good question, Derek. I have my feeling about it. And the sad thing about it is, with the cycling world, there was a lot of, doping and things like that. Cycling is a big enough sport where if that happened, it's not going to kind of draw away the fan base and the people that are willing to participate in the sport. So skating, on the other hand, is a much smaller sport. And there's people that have been caught doping and cheating. But I feel that they kind of keep things on a hush hush because it's such a small sport. And I've heard this before, that they can't afford to have like that image of like cheating and people being dirty in the sport, because it will just kill the sport. All the sponsors will, drop out, and then the sport will be left with nothing. So, if you guys, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Icarus documentary. They had something like that with the 2014 Olympics and things like that. I've competed against some of these guys where I would just wash them. They were nothing. They weren't even on my radar. And then leading up into those Olympics from like 2010 to 2014, these guys are like right on my heels. They're beating me. And I'm just like, how do you make that big of a jump? Your skating's not so good. You're not even a technical skater. But if they're able to like skate and not get penalized because they're so much stronger and they recover from hard workouts and things like that, they can push weight in the weight room a lot more, and they can do it more times a week than someone that isn't, under the like cheating. It's sad to think that the sport is a great sport, but this stuff has been happening since the beginning of time. And there's nothing that we can really do, because I feel that the anti-doping stuff is always like 10 years behind. And then it's a 10-year window. So by the time they catch up, they already threw out the stuff from they held for 10 years. So a lot of the people that were guilty, they get away with it.
You wonder, like, if they really wanted to, oh my God, this is going to get a little controversial, but if they really wanted to test and they really wanted to put some type of a grip on it, they could, right? Like they could make anyone who's in training, test maybe every month, right? And make it mandatory, or, up until the day, like they could go overboard with that. I mean, we see a lot in bodybuilding where, all right, well, it's illegal, but they have the natural federation and then they have the regular federation, right? You're like, well, why do you have to separate them? Why are you just random testing these people? Like, why aren't you just testing them all? And, that's what bums me out. I think I've been a coach for 25 years and I work with a lot of actors and prep them for movie roles. And what bothers me is when someone's not actually admitting that they take it. Like I have friends of mine that are on it and they're like, oh yeah, no, I've been taking performance enhancing substances for years. And then they're open about it. So I'm like, well, that's your decision. And it may not be something I agree with or would decide to do for myself, but at least they're public about it, to where some young kid's not turning around looking at their physique going, why is this guy pulling over 800 pounds off the floor? Right. Like, and then you have this young kid chasing it and he's like, I can't get past 405. Why? Well, there's other factors. There might be things with your training that are wrong, but there are other factors too. And I think that's what bums me out about this whole performance enhancing world right now. It's like, if everyone was just raising their hand saying, I'm on it, then, I think there's some clarity to who, then we could differentiate someone like yourself opposed to someone who, like you said, was, you were blowing them away. And then right 3-4 years later, they're at your heels.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing about it is, I never worked with any help. I remember one time when I was a kid, I wanted to take these vitamins my mom got me, and then we called USADA, and they're like, we don't know about this, take at your own risk. And that very moment when I was 16 years old, I said, you know what? I'm not going to take that risk. I'm just going to do it the way I know how to do it, which has been ingrained in me since I was a kid. Just work hard, try your best. And if you're good enough, you're going to win. And, in my case, for the most part, I actually kind of wrote the book on skating when I kind of pushed the sport forward. And I feel like because people weren't as technical and efficient as me, it caused them to want to close the gap and get more competitive, and the push the times that I was putting out, because a lot of people also said, like, Shani, what he's doing is not, it's unheard of and it's not natural. He's probably dirty and whatever. People say that. But, speaking of which, I'm an American, and I feel in America, they're not going to let you get away with that. There's been times where I've been randomly tested twice in the same day by USADA, which is United States Anti-Doping, and I got tested by the ISU, which is the International Skating Union. They came to my house. One came at 6 o'clock. They took blood and urine. I did that. It took an hour. And by the time they left at 7 o'clock, a knock on the door from from USADA, random test. And I missed practice that day because it took me 2 hours out of what, I would use for like rest and sleep. I feel like these other countries, and, there's more at stake, there's more of an incentive to cheat, because if you look at the prize money, I can be honest with you guys. When I won gold, I got $25,000. Okay. That was my bonus for winning gold at the Olympics. And I got taxed on it. If you look at what the Chinese get $2 million per gold. Russians get $250 plus property and Mercedes G-Wagon and all this other stuff for gold, or even a medal. Koreans get a lifetime pension. It's just a different ball game. And there's, I feel like when there's countries that hold this sport higher than what it is, like in Holland, speed skating is the #1 sport. It's shared with cycling. A lot of the speed skaters are on cycling, like professional cycling teams. So there's a gray line that none of us have access to that the rest of the world may have. And there's a huge incentive to do this because they can change their life overnight if they're successful. So for me, like, what's the risk? I don't want to be like Marion Jones, like, I don't want to take a hit like her, but there's people that can get away with it, and there's people that are under the microscope more. And when I was competing, I was the most tested athlete from all the sports when I was competing for, amateur sports. I was #1. I was more than Venus and Serena Williams. I got tested anywhere between 20 to 30 times a year, and it would be random.
Yeah,
Wow.
Derek, why don't we pivot now? Because I know we don't want to, we could stay on with Shani all day. Obviously he's got things to do, but I definitely wanted to hear a little bit more about the upcoming Olympics.
Yeah. Well, and having said all that, Shani, what position is U.S. speed skating in heading into these Olympics from your point of view?
We have a good chance at doing some good things over there, but it's going to be different because, in China, they're going to have the home field advantage, and they have a lot of strong skaters there for like some individual distances, like for the 500 males, the 1,000-meter male, and the 1,500 meters. So like all the middle distances in sprint, they have a good chance at doing well. But we have a team pursuit in America that is really strong. We have a young group of kids that are like really strong, and we have some individuals that stand out. But it's all about when you get there. It's going to be a closed bubble, and there's not going to be spectators. Like, we're having the Olympic trials now here in Milwaukee. There's no spectators whatsoever. It's just kind of like dead in the rink. And a lot of times people need that energy from the crowd to get them over the line. They need that cheering, and that Olympic atmosphere, that energy. And now they're limiting that due to the fact of being scared of, like, having an outbreak in the bubble and things like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm, for one point in my life, I'm happy that I'm an outsider looking and I can be a spectator. I don't have to compete in that environment. I'm happy to be able, like, if there's one to miss, I'm glad it's this one.
Well, I mean, think about the amount. I mean, there's so much more pressure, right? Just to stay healthy. It's not like you're going to be able to go over there and compete with a cold. I mean, you go over there and you've spent your whole life training for this moment. You spent the last, however many years training for this moment, and then you suddenly become infected with, COVID or whatever the variant is. It's like, wow, like, you're done. You're shut down. Do they have to bring over now specific reserve skaters? Are they going into this knowing that someone might get sick, are they able to bring more backups, or is it just only a certain amount?
No, it's if you get sick over there and you don't pass like the protocol for like being healthy, and like maybe you have like the variant or whatever, you're out.
Yeah.
There was a skater here that trained for 4 years. He was doing well. He came to Milwaukee. He got sick. He tested positive for COVID. And yesterday was his race that he was trying to make the team in. He couldn't even skate because he didn't clear the protocol. He was out. So, yeah, it's awful, but that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, that totally sucks.
Tough.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting watching, and you'll know who all the top guys are, and are they going to stay healthy, and will there be fair play in terms of like everybody being transparent with their tests, and I'm going to watch the NFL. And I don't know how they're going to get through the playoffs without somebody missing because of a positive test, like, whether it's a key quarterback or something like that. It's going to heavily influence the outcomes. Is that what you think is going to happen, Shani?
I believe that 100%. That's going to be something that's going to take its toll on the Olympics. And, you all have your favorites, but, the thing about what's going on with this virus is it doesn't have any, like, it doesn't care if you're the favorite or you're not or whatever. Maybe for a team event, it takes one or two or maybe one and you can't do the team event. It's going to take its toll. And I'm hoping that it's a good environment for the athletes and they're safe and they're healthy so that the best of them can compete and get the results that they trained for over the years. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, or there's going to be some Australians winning gold again or something.
It possibly could be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Dia, that was awesome. Shani,
yeah. Shani, what's a way people can find out more about you and what you're doing? I know you're doing some reporting and stuff, some media engagements on the Olympics. What's your social media handles?
Derek, I don't have social media. That's something I kind of.
Congratulations.
You won.
You win.
Yeah, I kind of did, but like, they want you to, like, the sponsors and people that are interested in like doing stuff with you, they want you to have social media. So maybe somewhere down the road when I'm comfortable with it and I'm ready for it, I'll like kind of start getting out there. But at this time, I'm under the radar, man.
Well, enjoy it. And listen, obviously best of luck to Team USA and best of luck to, you guys and all your preparation. I know you're not going to be over there with them, but I know you'll be there in spirit. I know your tutelage has been probably tremendous for all those young skaters to be able to learn under. So thank you. Derek, I'm looking forward to the Olympics, and I think it's going to be, it's just an incredible event. You wish you could view it more, but it's just it's the most exciting sports event in my opinion. It's just that one thing that just juices you up beyond anything else.
Yeah, just 24 hours of sports all the time. So it's great.
The way it should be.
Right on.
And you didn't even get to hear about Shani's all his ladies' man stories. So we'll get that in the next time we have him on.
Oh my God. We'll do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, next time.
Where the gold was really won. That's what we'll call the segment. Awesome. Johnny, Derek, thank you guys. Appreciate it. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yep.